Welcome back to the best training channel on YouTube. Today is my floater day. So my floater day, if you guys watched yesterday's video, is kind of like my optional training day for the week. If I want to take an extra rest day, I take an extra rest day. If I want to do some sort of work, that work needs to be very low because we've gone from a high day. Yesterday was a moderate day. Today is going to be low, and then we're going to ramp it back up as we come back to the track tomorrow for some acceleration work. So what I decided to do for my low day today was some med ball work. And I got the idea. I was talking to one of my former athletes who now is a strength and conditioning coach at Ohio State University. And we were just going back over the old things. I used to coach him when he was in high school, and he was asking me about med ball Wednesdays. And med ball Wednesdays were something that I had in my program every single Wednesday for a long time. And what it would be, it was just kind of like that break in the middle of the week to give people a little bit of different stimulus, have some fun, get out of the gym, do some variation in range of motion, keep things lighter, less intense before we ramp it back up on Thursdays and Fridays. So that gave me the idea that today, I kind of want to do a med ball Wednesday type day, even though it's on Thursday. So what I'm going to do is some extensive med ball work, just to kind of work through different ranges of motion, try to get a little bit of like very general conditioning in, and then get out of the house, get some training in today, because I feel good enough where I want to do something, but I don't want to overdo it. So this falls within that range of what's going to be an appropriate training stimulus for today, knowing that tomorrow we're going to ramp it back up onto the track. So I've already done a very general warm-up. Basically everything I would do prior to starting any kind of sprint drills. So just a little bit of range of motion work, a little bit of dynamic mobility stuff, just to kind of loosen up. And then now I've got a very light med ball. 2 kilo med ball is what I'm going to be using today. And I've got two different circuits that I'm going to do. I'm going to do a med ball circuit where I'm just working through different ranges of motion, through rotation, kind of getting things a little bit more warmed up. And then I'm going to be moving into a med ball rebound circuit, which is where I'm going to be doing some light, extensive med ball work against a surface. So for me, it's going to be this wall today. You could also do a lot of what you see today with a friend. If you and a friend want to go out, hit the field, go to a track, find an open space, whatever it might be. Maybe it's the basketball court at your gym, whatever you have access to, and you guys can just start tossing the med ball back and forth. That's going to be the focus for today. The first circuit that I'm going to go through is going to be just general movements, kind of working through rotation, working through hip extension and flexion, try to get some overhead movement with the arms, try to just loosen everything up prior to getting into any of the rebound work that I'm going to do after this. Each of these movements, I've got probably 5 movements that I'm going to move through. Probably do 3 rounds of this. You're going to do it in a circuit style, so you'll do one movement right after another, back and forth, and then probably just going to do about 3 rounds of that, and then also 3 rounds of the rebound circuit. So the first one I'm doing is going to be short arm rotation back and forth, 20 reps going back and forth. I've already lost count, so I'm just going to go back and forth for a little bit. And then once you've done 20 short arm rotations, you're going to go 20 long arm rotations. So extending that med ball out away from you is going to require a little bit more control through the trunk. And if you wanted, you could start doing, I call these single arm rotations, where you're getting a little bit more rotation through the trunk, added a little bit more requirement through that shoulder joint as well. So that last variation there, just an example of how you can play with this. But what I would normally do is 20 short arm rotations, 20 long arm rotations. Then we go up and downs. After you finished 20 up and downs, you're going to do another 20, but doing single arm. So 2 arms down, This one, you're just gonna do 10 reps on each side after you've done your up and downs. Then gonna move into rotations, 20 total. So we're gonna go 10 big circles to the left, 10 big circles to the right. And then last one is gonna be rotations around the head. Some people call these halos, but what I'm really looking at doing is just taking this med ball, circling around my head, 10 reps one direction, 10 reps in the opposite direction, so 20 reps total on that. And that's the first circuit. So I'm gonna do 2 more rounds of that. Rest in between, whatever you wanna do. I remember I would take maybe like a minute, 90 seconds, knock out the next one. Sometimes, if I really wanted to, I would add in some core work. So I would do planks, whether it's front planks, side planks, try to do a minute to 90 seconds on that. And then as soon as I was done with the core work, I would go back and knock out another circuit. It's up to you. As long as you're keeping that stimulus low, if you want to add in a little bit, maybe you want to do some push-ups in between, whatever, it doesn't matter a whole lot. Just as long as you keep that stimulus low, you'll be good to go. So I'm going to do 2 more rounds of that, and then I'm going to explain the rebound circuit for you guys and show you what that's going to look like. So rebound circuit, you're going to need a wall. You could do this with a friend, like I said, as long as you got an open space. It doesn't need to be a huge open space because you guys will probably only stand about 5-10 feet away from each other as you do this. But the rebound circuit is basically the same as that first circuit. You're looking at just accumulating a lot of volume on this, 20-ish reps on each of the movements, working through different ranges of motion again. So we're gonna have some overhead work, some rotational work, and then we're gonna have some hip flexion, hip extension work. There's 1,000 different variations that you could do. What I would recommend choosing is choose 5 to 6 different movements and then just do about 20 reps on each of those. Keep it very general, keep it easy. The med ball you're using should be fairly light, especially if you're just starting off on this. So like I said, I got a 2 kilo med ball. I would probably build up to like maybe 4 to 5 kilos at most. Once you start getting over 5 kilos, then it starts getting to the point where the med ball is a little bit too heavy and it probably will raise that stimulus up a little bit higher. So err on the side of caution, do a little bit lighter. First one we're gonna do is gonna be an overhead toss against the wall. So I'm looking at overhead position. "20 reps on the overhead position. Then I'm gonna move into a chest pass. Then I'm gonna move into a side rotation. So as I do the side rotation, one thing you want to focus on is really working through that range of motion. Because it's a light med ball and you're not throwing it super hard, it's very easy to just kind of go like this. I want to see a little bit more twist and rotation through the trunk. Switch it over to the other side. And then the last one is going to be an underhand toss against the wall. This wall, probably a little bit shorter than what I would like to be against because the med ball is probably going to end up traveling a little bit higher. But think of this as just the same thing we did with like the down and up overhead, except for now we're just down and we're going to be throwing that med ball a little bit further forward. So 20 reps here. Actually, wasn't too bad. I was expecting I was gonna be throwing that med ball a little bit higher than that, but that worked really well. 3 sets on that. Build up to, you could end up doing 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds of that if you want. As your tolerance to the stimulus continues to get better, you'll probably have a little bit more room for volume, but the goal is keep it extensive. This type of work is great for like a very general base program. So like the program I'm on right now, or for those of you that got the phase 1 program, you can throw this in there. You can do some med ball work. If you feel like you need an extra rest day, get some general conditioning qualities in, building up a little bit of tissue quality. So like higher volume repetitions at a lower intensity is great to just kind of prep the tissue through that base phase that you're moving in. And then you can start to progress things. An idea that I have in my next training phase, when we start to increase the intensity, is we'll start to increase the intensity on the med ball work a little bit. And then let's say you're in a power phase where you're focused on developing like 2 to 3 rep max on your squats, your benches, and things like that. But also, let's say you want to be trying to run fast, you want to try to peak towards a vertical jump test or power clean, whatever it might be, starting to use the med ball and doing like very intensive hard throws is another great way to get a different type of stimulus in there that can elicit some benefits for you when you're looking at trying to increase power and strength in later phases of a training program. So before I go, I want to show you guys some different ways that you can progress this that is different than just adding more volume. Maybe you don't want to do more volume. Maybe 3 rounds every single week is going to be more than enough for what you want to do. So the way that you can start to increase the complexity of this movement is keep the med ball the same weight, but you could start doing variations of those same throws requiring more coordination and more stability. So for example, that overhead toss, rather than doing both feet on the ground, you could do 1 foot in the air and do your overhead tosses here, 10 reps on one side, 10 reps onto the other. Besides having a stance where your feet are directly underneath the hips, you could start to do a split stance, which is going to require a little bit more coordination, a little bit more ability to balance yourself out, and you could do those tosses back and forth in this direction. The underhand toss, you could also go from a split position. Rather than going between the legs and forward, you can be going down, switch it up however you like. That way you can use the same weight on the med ball, not have to worry about increasing. Sometimes people only have 1 med ball to use, but just change up the amount of stability that you're going to need in order to perform that exercise. 2 feet on the ground versus 1 feet on the ground, split position versus lateral position, whatever it might be, in order to challenge yourself a little bit without putting too much more stress on the overall intensity of that day. So I'm going to do probably 2 to 3 more rounds. So if you liked what you saw today, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to knock out 2 more rounds, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on the track.